Hi, it's Mary, and I hope that you are enjoying your day. As promised, I'm here with my first December book review. The book this time is The Companion by Katie Alender. And it is a young adult contemporary suspense book. And it is suspenseful. But I don't feel that it's very scary. It's more a story about wanting something so badly that you ignore your gut instincts and put yourself in a precarious situation. So Margot and her family are in an accident, and Margot is the only survivor. 6 weeks later, she is living in a home for kids who, as she says, need somewhere to stay but aren't yet in the foster care system. Because Margot has nightmares and wakes up screaming during the night, no one will room with her, and so she has no friends. Then one day she is offered a home with a couple, John and Laura Sutton. And John was in law school with Margot's father, and Margot's father saved his life, and so to repay him, they would like to give Margot a home with them. The Suttons live in a secluded country estate. And although Margot didn't know that she wouldn't have cell phone service, and although she didn't know that she's expected to be a companion for their silent and mysterious daughter Agatha, and although she didn't know she'd be expected to help with gardening and other chores, Margot is there with the family and decides to stay. It's got to be better than staying in the group home, right? But Margot is not completely comfortable. She's creeped out at first by the silent daughter Agatha. She feels watched at times, and the house makes her feel uneasy, being so secluded and out alone. But she has stopped having nightmares, and she's come to kind of enjoy her nightly conversations with Laura over a cup of tea. Looking around the house and estate, even looking into the closed-off wing, Margot finds some odd things. There's evidence that Laura had a sister, Lily, but Lily is missing from the family portrait of the time. There's an old book about morals, detailing how parents should raise their children, especially girls. And there are sentences from that book copied out by Lily. There's also a room in the closed-off wing that appears to be a hospital room. And although Margot feels very uneasy about it, she's beginning to like Agatha. When Agatha's brother Barrett comes home to visit, he and Margot seem to become friends. So Margot ignores her uneasiness and stays with the family. Because Agatha needs her. And Barrett seems nice. And Laura depends on her for help. But when circumstances start to unravel, Margot must decide how to deal with it, how she can best help her friends and herself. The only question is it too late? So what are some similar books? I'm going to start with some books that were published more recently, but I'm actually going to suggest a couple that are classics. The first is the Arc of a Scythe series by Neal Shusterman, which includes the books Scythe, Thunderhead, and The Toll. In a world where hunger, disease, war, misery, and even death have been conquered, Citra and Rowan are apprentices to a scythe and must learn the art of taking a life, knowing that the consequence of failure could mean losing their own. The bulk of the Eyre series by Holly Black, which includes The Cruel Prince, The Lost Sisters, The Wicked King, The Queen of Nothing, and the illustrated How the King of Elfheim Learned to Hate Stories. Jude, a mortal girl, was 7 when her parents were murdered. She and her sisters become involved in palace intrigues while trying to have a place in the high court of the fairies. The next 2 books are both Victorian literature, but are similar in feel, and the second especially in theme. The Adventure of the Copper Beeches by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is a short story and part of the Sherlock Holmes series of books. The protagonist in both the companion and the Adventure of the Copper Beeches are young women who have no family. Both are living with families in which something is just not quite right, but they can't figure out what it is. But Violet Hunter, in The Adventure of the Copper Beeches, does have a friend, and she turns to Sherlock Holmes to help her know what is happening. Some of you may be familiar with my next suggestion. It's a book that people tend to either love or hate. I obviously love it, and that's why I'm suggesting it. It is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. While some people think of Jane Eyre as a romance, it's really a Bildungsroman. That is a book that follows the protagonist from youth to adulthood and focuses especially on the psychological growth of the character. In other words, it's a coming-of-age story. Jane Eyre is orphaned and sent to live with her uncle, his wife, and their 3 children. After her uncle's death, she is ignored and neglected by the aunt and abused by her cousins. Jane is then sent off to school, where she eventually becomes a teacher. But Jane wants more than her little secluded life at the school. Jane advertises for a position as a governess and is hired to teach Adele of Thornfield Hall. But there's some secret at Thornfield Hall. The servants whisper about things around Jane, and when the master, Mr. Rochester, returns, things become even more mysterious. A fire is started in Mr. Rochester's room, strange laughs are heard throughout the house, and eventually some of Jane's clothing is torn by a mysterious figure in the night. When the cause of all these strange occurrences is revealed, Jane must rely upon herself and make a difficult decision. So what's my next book? Are you ready for the unveiling? It is 5 Total Strangers by Natalie D. Richards, which is also a young adult contemporary suspense book. And I'll be back with the review of 5 Total Strangers next week. Until then, I hope that you enjoy whatever you read. And thank you.